Hey guys, it's Graham. What's cracking? I am rocking the sexy voice right now because my kids got me sick for the second time this year. That is way more than usual. Sometimes I'll catch a cold and it's fine, I can work through it, but this one actually gassed me pretty hard and I ended up having to not work on Memorial Day, which sucks. That's a great way to miss out on 12 hours of overtime. So yeah, it wasn't my first choice. But I did manage to get out to the movie theater on Saturday and see the new Mission Impossible. It's on my list of stuff to go see. I planned on seeing that Marvel Thunderbolts. Still haven't gotten out to see it. I probably won't in the theaters at this point. But Mission Impossible was worth it. So here's kind of a soft review of that without doing any spoilers. It is worth it to be pretty familiar with prior characters in this franchise, especially side characters. But the movie does a good job of giving you these quick little 2 or 3 second flashbacks to who was where and in what movie and such, so that you remember, oh, this was this guy or this was that lady. And it ties in stuff from all the way back to the first movie. And one thing that I found especially satisfying was how they took the rabbit's foot from Mission Impossible 3, which was a typical J.J. Abrams invention. What are they after? I'm not going to tell you. I'm just going to call it the thing, and it's what they're after. What does it do? Yeah, we're not going to say what it is. They come up with a definition for what the rabbit's foot was, and it becomes relevant to the plot in this final movie. It did have a long run time. It was close to 3 hours, and it was a slow burn. It wasn't one of those where it was paced in such a way where you're like, oh, I couldn't tell this was 3 hours. You pay attention to what's going on, and it gets time to marinate and to breathe. I'm going to compare it kind of to the final season of Game of Thrones. I never watched that show, but my brother was very big into it, and I remember one of the complaints he had about how fast they burned through the story in the final season. Excuse me. And one of his big complaints was that they didn't get a chance to do justice to the majority of the characters. And I get that show and that series has a big roster of characters. You get the opposite effect with this one, and not to its detriment. It's just the cost of doing business. But every character gets the attention that they deserve. There's a conversation that he has with Luther. There's one or two conversations that he has with Benji. There's some conversations that he has with side characters. There was a bit of a feeling in Dead Reckoning, which I'm not going to call Dead Reckoning Part 1 because this is not Dead Reckoning Part 2 so much. It's just yeah, these are sequels to each other, but come on. There was another IMF agent named Degas who they were planting seeds that he was going to be brought into the new team. And the same with Grace, Haley Atwell's character, and some hints of it with, I already forget this chick's name because I always just think of her as Palm Clementif. That's the name of the actress. She was this French assassin in Dead Reckoning, and now she's part of the team in Final Reckoning. They were really setting it up to pass the baton, and there were rumors that they were going to bring in Glenn Powell, which made sense because Katie O'Brien is in this movie. And for a while, the trend has been that if Katie O'Brien is in your project, Glenn Powell is as well. But I guess that wasn't the case here. Anyway, the plot of the movie, it's a continuation of Dead Reckoning. He's got to find a way to wrangle this AI before it ends the world. And there's some topical stuff that's handled pretty well. If you look at the 1995 movie with what they thought the internet was like, because it was just becoming available to the public, it's kind of funny to look back at it now and be like, yeah, that isn't how any of this worked. But you see what the AI is doing to rile people up, to get mobs going, to get civil unrest underway, and that's 100% how it works, especially if you consider the rate of bot activity on the internet. There's that whole dead internet theory about how much content online is AI generated. You see how it's used and how it's hinted at being used in this one, and it's like, yeah, no, we're 100% there. AI is only getting smarter, and it's taken a very short amount of time to do it. Anyhow, uh, Ethan has to go from place to place and through a complicated series of Rube Goldberg machines to find this piece or that piece and put this together and make this happen. And the length and pace of the movie is so that you appreciate the tension. Like the whole theme of this series is the impossibility of it all, and the central figure is a guy who can handle that impossibility. But you really need to believe that he struggles and that his life is in danger, even though he's able to constantly transcend these trials that are put in front of him. It is not without a massive amount of struggle. That is what makes him exceptional as a character. And I say Rube Goldberg, there's a little bit of like a knife's edge of exhaustion with how they explain, like, here's what we got to do. And it's cool. Like they kind of walk you through, like, here's the challenge. And then they go through the challenge, and the whole twist of it is like, oh, well, we don't get to face this challenge in exactly the way that we thought because this person isn't available or this factor changed or whatever. That's a built-in component of this franchise, going back to the beginning. But as a way to wrap up a 30-year arc of this character and the work that he does, it also pauses to take a little bit of a philosophical reflection on what they do and why they do what they do. You know, we protect people in the shadows, we protect everybody, and it's for the future, it's for all of that. Like it was beautiful and wholesome at a time when I'd like to see more of that in these action thrillers. It's kind of crazy to think back at the first movie that I saw in theaters. I saw it twice with my family when it first came out, and then the following summer I went to go live with my mama for a month, and she was living in Southern California, and she was kind of broke, but never really talked about it. But she'd go catch movies at the cheap seats, and she took me with her to the cheap seats to see it when it was in the dollar theater. And I saw it again, and I was like, oh, I don't really grasp a whole lot of what's going on with this internet crap, but it's cool to see Tom Cruise jumping off a helicopter or hanging from a rappelling wire and a cable or whatever, and doing cool stunt stuff. Like, I was into that. And now here I am, 30 years and 8 movies later, and just seeing it all wrap up in a way that is satisfying and endearing and meaningful. This is a guy who's constantly challenged by the world around him, not just by physical obstacles and situations, but by the many people who doubt him and the few that are in his corner. I mean, he's even got conflicts with his team, but it's not fabricated. It's often a matter of like, I need to risk this, and they don't want him to, and he's like, well, it's this or we fail, and we don't fail. So it's a unique phenomenon in cinema history. We've had long-running series before, but the lead has stayed the same over 3 decades. The filming has remained authentic and practical. Even if he's got safety measures built in, there's no changing the fact that Tom Cruise was hanging onto the side of a military cargo plane, or onto the side of a biplane in this one, or doing these underwater stunts. It's like, yeah, they've got SCBAs and whatnot, but he's still underwater holding his breath for minutes at a time if he can. And yeah, this guy's in his 60s and he's more shredded than you or I will ever be. There's a gritty reality to that. There's a correlation between art and effort, and art is made more valuable by the effort and the craft put into it, which dovetails very nicely with the theme of AI very easily subverting reality with falsehoods. In an era where so much of what we see is digitally generated, the fact that there are still artists out there putting in that effort to make something real, and to have it executed well from the story phase onward is just beautiful and commendable. So yeah, while this was a 3-hour movie, by the time I got to the end, I just, I wasn't that white guy that stood up in the theater and clapped. I got to the end and I was like, that was just beautiful. And it's not often that I say that about an action movie. You walk out of an action movie, it's like, oh, I was entertained, oh, that was cool or whatever. It's like, this was beautiful. I like it when the good guys win. and with some of the callbacks to the previous movies and all that stuff, it was just like this is good stuff. I remember when the third Mission Impossible came out in 2006. I didn't want to see it because that was right around the time that Tom Cruise was having some PR problems. He said some weird stuff about postpartum and medicine, and he did the whole dancing on Oprah's couch thing, and there was some more of the Scientology stuff coming out. There was just like this general PR miasma around like, oh, Tom Cruise is just weird. Like, yeah, I don't want to see that movie. And then I saw it and I was like, okay, like this was well executed. Tom Cruise can be weird. He's still a good actor. And that was the J.J. Abrams movie. That was that one had its flaws, but for me, for years after watching it, I was like, the biggest problem was from the writing side of things. It's just like, oh, we need something for them to go after, and then they never explain what it is. And then the more J.J. Abrams sinks his hooks into things, the more you realize that that's his methodology. He doesn't think about the writing. He just hits the lens flare button and spams it from there. Whatevs. Christopher McQuarrie, the writer and director on this one, took effort to make all of that work. Speaking of McQuarrie, I was looking at some filmography for other actors just while I was sick over the weekend. I tried to write, and I could maybe put down like 10 words a minute. It was so frustrating. Couldn't really like concentrate well enough to read a book either, so I was just like reading stuff online, stuff that was easily consumable and detachable. Anyway, I was getting on IMDb, and I saw one of his upcoming projects is called Broadsword, and it's a World War II piece, which was like, okay, another World War II movie starring Henry Cavill, and it's like, you're going to put Henry Cavill in another World War II movie. It's like, well, I'm not thrilled about that, but it is cool that he's getting a Christopher McQuarrie movie because McQuarrie's body of work is really good artistically, and Cavill deserves to have something really good under his belt. And this one was something about like a team of Royal Marines lands on a beach somewhere, and like they all die except for one guy, and he's got to rely on some locals for help. And it's like, okay, I want to see a trailer for this, but it sounds cool. And after watching the last couple of Mission Impossible movies, like as far as pacing problems and challenges that they've had, artistically they've been sound and rewarding. And I liked Final Reckoning. It's excuse me, it's not the kind of popcorn flick that you would just put on and casually watch, which would make a rewatch less likely, but still well done. I walked out of that one satisfied and happy and glad that I took the time to go see it in the theater. So that is my endorsement of The Final Reckoning. And if you get a chance to go see it, especially if you're a fan of this franchise and you've seen the last couple, do check it out. Let me know what you think. Drive safe. See you out there.